At 12,500 feet above sea level, on a treeless plateau in western Bolivia, there is a field of shattered stone. At first glance, it looks like rubble, like the aftermath of an earthquake or a bomb. But pick up one of those stones and turn it in your hands. The surfaces are perfectly flat. The angles are exact right angles. The grooves are cut to a uniform depth, with tolerances that would satisfy a modern machinist. These are the H blocks of Puma Punku. They interlock without mortar, fitting so tightly that not even a razor blade can be inserted between the joints, and they were carved from andesite, a volcanic stone nearly as hard as granite, using tools that, according to mainstream archaeology, consisted of other stones. No iron, no steel, no wheel, no written language. 1,000 years before the Inca Empire rose to power, someone built this, and then something destroyed it, and no one can fully explain either event. Puma Punku means door of the Puma in Aymara. It is a temple complex adjacent to the ancient city of Tiwanaku, about 70 kilometers west of La Paz, near the southern shore of Lake Titicaca. The Tiwanaku civilization flourished from roughly 200 BC to 1000 AD. At its peak, it controlled the entire Lake Titicaca basin and parts of modern Bolivia, Peru, and Chile. Its population may have reached 400,000 people, supported by an ingenious system of raised field agriculture that trapped moisture and heat on the cold altiplano. They built Puma Punku sometime between 536 and 600 AD, based on radiocarbon dating of organic material found in the lowest construction layers. That date is important. It means the builders were contemporaries of the Byzantine Empire, of the Gupta dynasty in India. These were not primitives living at the edge of the world. They were the center of a civilization that lasted 500 years, and Puma Punku was their masterpiece. Here's what makes Puma Punku different from every other ancient site. It is not the size of the stones, though some weigh over 130 tons. It is not the distance they were transported, though the andesite blocks were quarried 90 kilometers away on the Copacabana Peninsula and somehow moved across Lake Titicaca. It is the precision. Architectural historians Jean-Pierre Protzen and Stella Nair conducted the first professional study of the masonry. Their conclusion was extraordinary. To obtain the smooth finishes, the perfectly planar faces, and the exact interior and exterior right angles, they resorted to techniques unknown to the Incas and to us at this time. Unknown to us, that is not a fringe claim. That is a peer-reviewed statement from architectural historians. The H blocks are the most striking evidence. Dozens of them share identical geometry, the same grooves, the same interlocking channels, the same dimensions, as if they were produced from a master template or a mold. When Nair attempted to replicate a single carved design using period-appropriate stone tools, flint, agate, obsidian, it took an experienced team 25 hours to complete one small motif. The entire complex contains thousands of such cuts. So how do we explain it? Mainstream archaeology says stone hammers and sand abrasives, wielded by a vast organized labor force over decades. That is plausible for rough shaping, but it does not explain the uniform precision across dozens of identical blocks. It does not explain the drill holes with consistent diameters, and it does not explain why the Inca, who came 4 centuries later with a larger empire and more resources, could not replicate this work. A minority theory offers a different answer. In 2018, a peer-reviewed paper in Materials Letters presented evidence that some of the red sandstone blocks at Puma Punku may not have been carved at all. They may have been cast, using an alkali-activated geopolymer process incorporating natron salts from the Altiplano salt flats. If the stone was poured into molds like concrete, The precision is no longer mysterious. It is expected. But this theory covers only the sandstone. The andesite blocks remain unexplained. And then there is the older dating controversy. In 1926, Austrian explorer Arthur Poznański studied astronomical alignments at Tiwanaku and proposed a construction date of at least 13,000 years ago, placing it before the end of the last ice age. Modern archaeologists reject this dating, but Poznański's work raises an uncomfortable question. We cannot radiocarbon date stone itself. We can only date the organic material found near it. What if the stones are older than the layers they sit in? Something catastrophic happened to Puma Punku. The site today is a field of scattered rubble. Massive blocks that once formed walls and platforms now lie, tumbled across the landscape as if thrown by a giant. The leading explanation is an earthquake, possibly combined with a catastrophic flood. But there is a stranger detail. Puma Punku was never finished. It was abandoned mid-construction. Tools were left where they lay. Blocks were only partially carved. Whatever the builders were creating, they stopped before it was complete. Around 1000 AD, a prolonged drought reduced Lake Titicaca's water levels and destroyed the raised field agricultural system that fed the Tiwanaku population. A 500-year civilization collapsed within a single generation. The last builders may have walked away from their tools and never returned. When the Inca arrived 4 centuries later, they looked at the ruins and could not explain what they saw. Pedro de Cieza de Leon, a Spanish chronicler who visited in 1549, recorded that the local Aymara people attributed the construction to beings who had come before the Inca, beings from another time. The Inca themselves called the builders followers of Viracocha, the creator god who, according to their mythology, had emerged from Lake Titicaca to bring civilization to the world.